Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. So at Nitinotes, we are actually developing the world's first automated endoscopic treatment of obesity, and we're actually very close to market. We plan on launching in Europe the middle of this year. So I'm going to walk you through the technology and the size of the market and where we are in our commercialization process. So EndoZip is an automated suturing system designed for endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty. Many of you might think of the traditional surgical treatments for this type of disease of obesity by where it's a very invasive procedure and the surgeon will cut out part of the stomach. Actually, this procedure preserves the anatomy of the stomach, but it simply sutures it so it shrinks the volume. There's 4 steps in the procedure. I'm going to show you an animation video after. It'll be self-explanatory. But basically, you insert this endoscopic device through an overtube in the esophagus. You position the distal tip of the device in the greater curvature of the stomach. You push a button, and then the device does the rest. It will actually suture, cinch, and cut the suture, and then you remove the device and you insert another one. Typically, you'll use about 3 to 5 suture lines, as you can see on the image to the right, to get the desired outcome. So here is actually the animation of
EndoZip,
the procedure.
Automated endoscopic suturing for stomach restriction. EndoZip is a fully automated, easy-to-use, operator-independent system. Starting with a minimally invasive oral approach, EndoZip is inserted through an overtube together with a standard pediatric scope. An articulating head allows easy positioning in any anatomy. Suction is then applied to collapse the stomach around the suturing head, drawing the stomach walls into designated stitching ports that enable reproducible full-thickness suturing. With the press of a button, automated stitching is initiated through an activation of a helical needle that connects the anterior and posterior walls. The stitches are automatically tightened and secured, allowing quick extraction of the device. A new device is inserted, and the process is repeated to complete the predetermined multi-suture layout.
So you can see it's relatively straightforward. Today, the biggest obstacle to adopting this type of minimally invasive approach is the requirement and the learning curve to do intra-operative suturing through a scope. It's actually quite complicated. And so that's why you don't have more physicians adopting this type of procedure. What we've done is we've taken the learning curve way down so that it would open up the procedure to a much broader base of physicians and then thus offering this type of care to a broader base of patients. So if you look here at the target market that we are targeting, you can see at the very bottom the number of ESG procedures per year that we estimate by 2030 in the US and Europe is around 330,000, which puts this at a $1 billion market opportunity. Today, what you have to understand is, and just recently, the World Health Organization and the professional societies have come to the agreement that obesity is actually a chronic disease. And so although only a very small percentage today seek treatment, we believe in the future, as there's more awareness created around this and as there are procedures such as ours that offer a solution, that patient population that will be seeking treatment will grow exponentially. So where does ESG, our therapy, fit in the overall treatment paradigm of the patient? As I mentioned earlier, bariatric surgery is really indicated for what we call class 3 morbidly obese patients that suffer from other comorbidities such as diabetes or heart disease. And it's a very high-risk, intensive, non-reversible procedure with about a 1% mortality rate. And then many of you have heard of intragastric balloons. They call that the wedding therapy. Some people will actually get intragastric balloon treatment. Lasts about 4 months. You lose some weight, but then after, you either have to remove the balloon or the balloon dissolves. So it's not very durable, and there's no reimbursement for this because the outcomes are quite short-lived. Probably the biggest news in the market lately are GLP-1 drug therapy, which today you see are being prescribed primarily off-label. The original indication for these drugs was diabetes primarily. but they have actually demonstrated that there's quite an efficacious weight loss as a result of the injection of GLP-1 drugs. However, we've seen today many publications that show the compliance rate at 1 year is less than 50%. It's not reimbursed for off-label use, so it's quite expensive. And we know that long-term therapy leads to side effects such as muscle wasting. Now, there's a lot of investment dollars, billions being poured into improving these therapies, but nonetheless, they are short-lived. And we know that the side effects are quite high as well as the cost. So ESG, our procedure, actually comes in, if you will, sort of when the patient has been put on GLP-1 therapy, they've actually lost weight, and after 6 months or a year, the injections become untenable, either because they have side effects or they can't afford to continue the therapy, and then as soon as they stop, they get rapid weight regain. And so that is really the target patient population for our therapy, because they wouldn't be indicated for bariatric surgery. They're not morbidly obese, but they've lost weight, now they're gaining it back. So the benefits of ESG, our procedure, is, again, we use sutures to restrict stomach volume. It's done minimally invasively, very, very few side effects. It is reversible, and it's done in an outpatient setting with very low risk. We also know that it's more cost-effective than GLP-1. If you look at the right side of the screen, there was a study that was done that showed that ESG achieved and sustained greater weight loss than GLP-1 over a 5-year period. And the cost-effectiveness of ESG compared to GLP-1 therapy is quite compelling. We know that there have been recent M&A transactions in this space that continue to support a device-based solution for obesity treatment, such as the acquisition of Standard Bariatrics by Teleflex, and then Apollo Endosurgery, which is actually the first company that pioneered ESG procedures in the market, although it's a very manual approach that they follow as compared to our automated approach, and that was recently acquired by Boston Scientific. We also know that there have been about 50,000 cases, all cases of ESG, not our product, but ours, Apollo and others. And there have been over 200 publications demonstrating a less than 2% complication rate. And Apollo was the first company to get an on-label approval by the FDA, and we're following suit. So where is our procedure in the clinical safety and efficacy arena? We've now done 3 clinical trials on 94 patients, and we've shown a percentage total body weight loss reduction equivalent to that of other ESG therapies of around 13.2%. And what our clinical trials have shown is that the learning curve for our procedure is quite short, only 1 patient. The average procedure time is half that of a standard ESG procedure, around 30 minutes. And 90% of physicians that participated in the trial rated our device as easy to use. There's also reimbursement codes in the US and Europe currently for these procedures. And as I mentioned, we plan on getting approval in Europe the middle of this year, where we will have a very focused launch of the technology in certain select markets. And we're currently finalizing our negotiations with the FDA for our 510(k) pathway with an IDE study to support that approval. We're seeking $22 million in a C round to commercialize EndoZip in Europe and the US, of which $9.3 million was already raised by inside investors. So to summarize, we know that GLP-1 drugs are widely used. However, their compliance is quite low for the reasons I mentioned. There's unmet demand still today that creates an opportunity for our procedure. There's been quite a bit of M&A in the activity in the area. Our device actually automates a very complicated procedure, which will open it up for a broader base of clinician use, offering the procedure to a greater variety of patients. We are expecting approval in Europe, and we're finalizing our negotiation with the FDA, and we're seeking a C round to support our commercialization efforts. Thank you.